Sephora stores are everywhere you are. So just pop in. When you need a brown lip to match your 90s playlist. A confidence boost before your interview? Or a last-minute gift for mom's birthday. There's always a Sephora near you. Just pop in. Use our store locator to find your local Sephora or Sephora at Kohl's.
Have you ever thought about why some days it feels like you're perfectly in tune with the universe, and other days it just feels like everything is against you? Kind of like there's a hidden rhythm or pattern that you're just a tad out of sync with. We've all been there. Sometimes it's a whole period of our lives. Hello, 2007 through 2010? And sometimes it's just one of those days. I have one day that will go down in history. Just everything. Okay, I have to tell you. I was getting ready to go to an event that I was all excited for. I was getting all dolled up, perfecting the last few curls, and somehow my oddly expensive curling iron singed off an entire chunk of my hair. Got over that, went out to my car, and stepped in actual human feces in my favorite boots. There are some things about LA that I will never miss. So I go inside, I clean them off, go back out, notice my gas tank is empty. So I take an Uber, and then I leave my iPhone in the Uber, and I spilled on my dress at the party. Sometimes I have nightmares that I'm still living that day. Thankfully, the next day was one of those days where everything falls into place and I did get my phone back, but man, was I defeated. It's easy to feel like we're just passengers on life's roller coaster, tossed about by luck. But what if there's a deeper pattern at play? A blueprint that connects us, not just to the random things that happen, but to the very fabric of the universe itself. Have you ever noticed how certain patterns show up over and over again in nature? Almost like the cosmos have this universal design language. From the Fibonacci spiral to the flower of life, you see these patterns in everything from the swirl of a snail's shell to the way that seeds are arranged in a sunflower. This is called sacred geometry, and it's the secret language of nature. It's the ancient science that looks at how everything from beehives to entire galaxies follow the same universal patterns. Spirit science describes it as the building blocks of consciousness. It revolves around the idea that all consciousness, including our own, is solely based on sacred geometry. They say that by understanding these patterns, we can start to see where we've been, where we are now, and where we're headed in life. I've known about sacred geometry for a while, but it wasn't until recently that it clicked for me how this knowledge can actually help us in our day-to-day lives. Now, I don't know if understanding this will help you avoid stepping in human shit, especially if you're in LA, but what I have learned is that we can actually attune ourselves to align with the universal flow and even pull from higher dimensions. Our guests are Gail and Gregory Hogue. They have over 4 decades of expertise in the realm of sacred geometry, and they've pioneered groundbreaking technologies and new discoveries that have changed thousands of lives all over the world. So 3 key things we will learn are the unexpected ways these ancient symbols can elevate your consciousness, how your aura and chakras could be affecting your physical and spiritual well-being, and how to pull energy from higher dimensions to impact your daily reality. Before we go deep today, I want to give you a little gift, and I want to give it to you every single day. It's called the Morning Mind Love. I know how life can be. You're all fired up after an inspiring episode, and then a new day or a new challenge comes at you, and it's just hard to keep up that energy. Well, the Morning Mind Love is kind of like an oracle from your higher self to help you start each day with a positive focus. Plus, when you sign up, you get 2 free gifts, a 30-minute binaural meditation and 30 days of journaling prompts to help you remember who you truly are. And it's all completely free. So join over 9,000 people and go to mindlove.com to sign up or text the word morning to 33777.
This is all about how can we connect to the higher realms of who we are? How can we connect to each other, to the universe, to our oneness? And we live in a modern time where we're so disrupted. There's so much going on all the time that makes it really rough to stay connected. You know, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship that's rough, whether it's the electromagnetics that are in our environment. There's so much fear and so much that is about separation. And really, what's important is for us to find our pathway to connection. And sacred geometry, the way that I see it, is a way of helping us all feel those essential connections.
Turn up your frequency with Mind Love. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
What initially drew you guys to explore sacred geometry?
Actually, Melissa, it's an interesting story, and I have one end of it, and he's got another one, so we'll fill you in on it. To start with, I really always felt like I was here to make a difference. But when I was little, I didn't quite know how to flesh that out. And as I was moving on in my life, I was an artist, and I loved just looking out in my environment and trying to understand, what is this universe? How is it created? What is it about? What are the messages that it's holding for us? And so as I was journeying on, one of the things that I got really connected into was the work of Buckminster Fuller. And if you're familiar with his work, he created the geodesic dome, was an extraordinary thinker, and he would go way out there in also trying to understand our cosmology. What is this? How is it constructed? How is it connected? And connection was really a very important thing for him because he's the one who talked about synergy. And so I was very much into his work. And when he passed away in the early 80s, and I had recently moved to Boulder, Colorado, I had been doing work, just like through meditation. I would also work with being a channel and connecting in with higher energies and higher intelligence. And so I put it out and I said, look, I'd love to learn more from you. Your wisdom is exquisite. And if you'd like to teach me, I'm here. So little by little, as I asked a few times, he showed up. And I started getting these wonderful lessons from him. And for those of you who aren't familiar with his work, he worked a lot with geometry and a basic construct that he found called the tetrahedron, which is a three-dimensional triangle. And so I was getting more and more information. It was getting very technical. I didn't have a background in science. And so I just went, whoa, wait a minute. This is like way over my head. Either send me somebody that I can do something with about it or tone it down. And probably within a week or two after that request, I bumped into Gregory, where I had just moved my paintings from New York into a home that a friend of mine was renovating. And he had sold that house to this woman, and he was checking on his big table while I was checking on my paintings. And that's how it all got started. So one of the things that kind of triggered it was that he was carrying around a box of these geometries that were made up of tetrahedrons. And so when I asked him, are you familiar with Buckminster Fuller? And he said, no. And I said, well, you need to learn more about it. And so everything just started spiraling from that.
You see, I didn't purposely go after sacred geometry. I didn't even know what sacred geometry was. But in mostly the whole decade of the 70s, I was pursuing spiritual enlightenment, working with different masters, living in ashrams. I had a number of businesses as well. And what happened in 1980 is I built a pyramid with a friend that in today's dollars would probably be close to $250,000, even though it was only 10 feet high. And the reason was we had large crystals and crystal balls and gold and silver and copper on the peak. And sleeping in it, it set off my Kundalini. And what that is an energy that's rising up from the earth and moving back through the body, literally trying to stretch the body toward the higher dimensional aspects of its being. And it was very painful at times. It was like moving a 220 volt surge of electricity through a 110 circuit. I had issues, and so those issues blocked that flow of energy. And in the end, I was having so much energy go through my body that holes were being burned in my hands and my feet just from the energy passing through. And I started getting that into balance. And that's when I started connecting with higher dimensional beings and seeing patterns that exist prior to physical manifestation. And so I was building what I was seeing and had no idea that some of them had names and that it would be further revealed by working with Gail and Bucky Fuller what was going on with some of these geometries. So that started us on a 40-year journey to where we are today.
So it sounded like sacred geometry wanted you to know what it was.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so I'm curious, you mentioned what was going on with these sacred geometries. What is going on with sacred geometry? What is that connection to this quest for enlightenment? Why is it important for people to know?
Well, I think I'll start out with sort of a generalized way of looking at this, and then we can drill down into it more. The universe, everything starts out as just pure energy, right? And so you can look at everything and just go, It's all space, it's all energy." But this body has form. What we see around us in nature has form, the way that rocks and trees and plants are structured. It happens in very, very specific ways that we can count on over and over and over again. And so sacred geometry is actually a way of understanding how universe is constructed with certain rhythms, patterns, cycles. It is a foundation of creation. And along with that is consciousness, because there's nothing that's created without that connection to consciousness. So throughout history, we've seen sacred geometry. Well, it's all around us in nature. When you look at the way flowers and trees and plants and our bodies and everything is structured, we see it there. Ancients built temples, whether you look at things like the Great Pyramids, Stonehenge, cathedrals, whatever it is, there was a way that it was structured so that when people came into these environments, they felt elevated. They were, allowed to reach to a higher dimension. And we believe that we are multi-dimensional beings. We're not just this physical body. We're here with extraordinary higher capabilities. And so sacred geometry teaches us how that works and how we can work with those higher aspects of who we are. And so we've been studying this for a long time, building different tools that support people in some of those very essential connections so that they are really fueled to be fully dimensional in their lives.
So when Gail was talking about the fact that we are multidimensional, it means that literally our emotional body is occupying the field of energy around us. And so we can also understand, like an onion, the mental body is also out there around us, not just located in the physical. And so when the mental body is going through stress, and we're having difficult times, it blocks the flow of energy from higher self, the flow of energy from soul. And the emotional body, when all these negative emotions arise and we feel angry or sad or some other aspect of not being okay with the way everything is, we're blocking that flow of energy too, along with the toxins, the electromagnetic frequencies that are coming in around us, all the judgments, our belief systems. All of this keeps us very limited in our ability to expand into the higher dimensions, our ability to actually communicate with soul, to communicate with bigger parts of the universe. So, what happens with sacred geometry, because it follows the patterns that are set by universe, it follows the archetypes that are actually there behind creation. So everything in creation follows these particular archetypes. And when we bring those aspects of measure, working with certain kinds of materials, working with certain types of shapes, and we bring those into our physical dimension, they start vibrating with that higher dimensional energy. It's like an antenna system, or if you were to think of a C tuning fork, when someone plays a C tone, that tuning fork starts to vibrate. And so when these natural aspects of creation are built and put around us, or we wear it on our body or something like that, it changes our frequency. It changes our vibration. So we start being able to connect to those bigger parts of ourselves, those parts that can tune in to, just what's going on, what's happening, this serendipity of being in the right place at the right time, the aspects of universe that allow our intuition to flourish, our ability to just connect to who we are in a way where we feel the love, we feel the oneness that is there in all of creation, but it gets masked over so much by our own fears and the EMFs and toxins and so forth.
You know what's funny? We spend so much time feeding our minds, reading books, listening to podcasts, learning new things, but then we grab whatever's convenient to feed our bodies. And I get it. Life is busy, and sometimes a drive-through feels like the only option. But that's why I take Field of Greens. It's a greens powder made with whole organic fruits and vegetables. No extracts, no lab-made stuff, and just 1 scoop a day gives you simple, real nutrition. Field of Greens feeds your body with fruits and vegetables medically chosen to support your heart, vital organs, and immune system. And let me tell you something. Since I started taking it, I've noticed these little changes that show me how nutrient depleted I must have been before. Like the ridges in my nails, gone. My sleep, so much better. And my stomach just feels happy. You know that dreaded afternoon crash that has you reaching for more coffee or sugary snacks? Well, that's not happening for me anymore. When your body is actually nourished, it runs so much better. I've tried other greens powders before, but Field of Greens is genuinely different. The quality is next level and you can taste it. It's become my go-to, especially on those days when my eating isn't exactly Instagram worthy, because we all have those days, right? And here's the thing. They are so confident that you'll love it too, that they offer a 100% money-back guarantee. That's how much they believe in their product. So I got you 15% off your first order and free rush shipping. Visit fieldofgreens.com and use promo code MINDLOVE. That's promo code MINDLOVE at fieldofgreens.com. fieldofgreens.com. I don't know why it took me so long to invest in good bedding. I resisted it for years, but something flipped in me about 3 years ago, And now I'm basically a pillow connoisseur. I've tried them all, and I get weirdly excited about good bedding. Because here's the thing, we spend a third of our lives in bed, and the quality of that time affects literally everything else, which is why I'm so excited to tell you about my latest obsession, Lagoon Sleep Pillows. What sets them apart is their matching system. You take a quick 2-minute quiz about your sleep style and your preferences, and then they match you with your perfect pillow. I was matched with their Otter pillow, and I am so impressed. Lately, I've just needed more support, and this seems to cradle me in all the right places. I'm also low-key obsessed with their travel pillow, which I use for way more than just travel. I actually hug it, use it as leg support, and of course, take it on trips with me. Well, the secret is in their adjustable fill. You can add or remove it to get that perfect alignment for your spine. A study even found that the right supportive pillow can improve sleep quality by 63%. And Lagoon lets you try their matched pillow for 100 nights risk-free. Free returns, no questions asked. Falling asleep has never been easier. I toss and turn less and just wake up feeling refreshed every morning. Go to lagoonsleep.com and take their awesome 2-minute sleep quiz to find your match. Use the code MIND for 15% off your first purchase. In your book, you describe consciousness as the fabric underlying all existence. Can you elaborate on the difference between awareness and consciousness?
I think that's an important distinction, Melissa, because we use those words interchangeably sometimes. But the way that I see it is awareness is really more of tuning into physically what you're aware of, or more specifically, like I'm aware of my feelings. Now, those you don't necessarily see, but they're still somewhat tangible. Consciousness is like the broader part of it. What's holding all of this together? When we talk about this universe is really held together with love. Well, love is probably one of the hardest words to define. Like you have experiences of it, but to actually put your finger on what is this thing of love? The universe is created in such a manner that it's not just an abstract random thing. There's intelligence, there's an essence of an energetic spirit behind it. And some people might call it love, they might call it higher intelligence, they might, have all different kinds of names for it. But really, there's something there that holds everything together. And that's what I see as consciousness. It is that knowingness, that whatever it is that we step through in our lives to evolve, to come closer to what is this life? What is our soul? What the heck are we here for? What are we doing? And I think that our journey here is to elevate our consciousness and to work with bringing the soul energy into this physical dimension and actually elevate this dimension, blessed with that consciousness and that love.
A lot of people that have been studying spirituality have a basic understanding of things like auras or chakras. Whether or not they understand it is not really here nor there, but they've heard the words. They have usually a primary level of understanding. But how do energy fields like auras and chakras interact with consciousness?
So our aura is like a torus, which is like a donut. That means energy is flowing down and then out and around us. Sometimes it flows up and out and around us. And each chakra is also like a torus. And that's like a tornado, a whirlwind that's spinning into the body on one side and out of the body on the other side. And it does this through all of the chakras. And it also does it through many chakras all through the body called nadis. So energy is constantly moving in and moving out of us. And so this is how consciousness starts to work with our body. And the main opening portal is the heart chakra. So when you hear the phrase coming from the heart or being heart wise, a better way to really understand it would be that it's coming through the heart, your higher self, that higher intelligence, that higher consciousness is able to come in and work with your brain, work with your body, work with everything through the doorway of the heart. So that's why it's so important to work on opening the heart and allowing these higher aspects of our being to show up here in the physical, because that's one of the greatest joys, is to be able to incorporate bigger and bigger parts of ourself. And it comes with so much understanding and love, as Gail has been talking about, that it really puts us into that place of being okay and wanting to be of service to all, because there's so much here to be shared.
Anyone out there who does yoga has heard of heart openers, heart opening poses. I remember doing a breath work in a
Mhm.
women's circle probably 8 years ago, and we did a heart opening breath work. And I was visualizing, and it was so interesting because I could just feel some sort of blockage there. And there was something that
Mm.
happened where it just like went through, and I just burst into tears. And so
Mm.
I'm curious though, I don't know if that one breath work created a lasting change, if it was a momentary. What are the things that you see that close our heart, and what are practical ways to begin to open it back up again?
Well, a lot of the things we've been talking about that are difficulties in the physical dimension close us down. And it works on closing the heart down, but all aspects of us being open to higher self. And as the heart is the main portal, the main doorway, that means that even electromagnetic frequencies and toxins in the environment and stress has the ability to close it down. And all of the negative emotions that are that we create, the sadness, the guilt, the fear, the anger. Actually, they're all forms of fear that are blocking the heart from that higher love that we can access. And it starts with our belief systems. If we even believe that it's possible to open up to those higher aspects, or have the judgments that are going on that say, no, I'm not worthy, I can't do that. And so that's what's going on from my perspective with that.
And I love what you were sharing here too, because for one thing, breath work is really great stuff because, our breathing is really what connects us to life, right? When we stop breathing, we've left this body. And the what the breath work does is it enables us to actually move energy. Because when we're breathing, we're connecting to that energetic source. And so that's what you were doing, where it touched you in such a way. And perhaps you were in a group of women that you felt safe enough that you could allow yourself the ability to let go at that point. Now, does that mean that you totally unblocked your heart forever? No. We go through a lot of different times and different steps in our lives. And so it is like, Gregory mentioned, peeling the different layers of the onion there's more and there's more. And so once you release one thing, then perhaps that sets the stage to take it even deeper. And so it's a constant process. But just like, like the chakras, we don't want to have our chakras wide open all the time because that wouldn't necessarily be appropriate. I mean, that might trigger too much going on for people. So things come in and out, just like we breathe in and out. So it's a constant process. And the more that we are comfortable with that, the more we can, get into that cycle of allowing ourselves to elevate our consciousness and release some of the blockages that we may have been holding on to for eons, way even beyond this life.
Another topic I find fascinating that you cover in your book is the concepts of divine masculine and feminine. And we've discussed that on the show, but I'm curious, how do they play a role in sacred geometry and our understanding of the universe?
It begins with the numbers 1 and 2, 1 being source energy, beginning, and the numbers themselves have so many qualities beyond just being understood as quantities. And they also have aspects of being masculine and feminine. So 1 is the divine masculine. It is the source. It is the seed. It is the beginning. And yet, when you look at the way 1 interplays with this world, if you divide any number by 1, you get the same number again. And if you multiply a number like 9 by 1, you again have the same number. So 1 is there as a universal divider, and it's within every number, but it's hidden. It's almost difficult to find, just like the divine aspect of creation is difficult to approach because we're in the physical dimension. And it's when that 1 starts to reflect on itself, and it does this geometrically through seeing a circle that expands into 2 circles such that each circle's center is on the edge of the other circle. This is an even expansion, and that too is the divine feminine. It's the aspect that gives us duality. And there are so many aspects about duality that are really positive, because if we couldn't express our separation, we couldn't have a conversation right now. But it is moving that energy between us that can happen when we have separation, when we have duality. So it's like the divine feminine gives birth to this reality. And if we want to move back into connection with source, then we have to go through the feminine to get there, which is, I believe, one of the reasons why it's becoming more and more important today that we recognize the power of the feminine and we bring it into balance with the masculine. Because obviously, in the physical world, things have been very out of balance, with like 1 dominating the other or things seeming to go head to head. But we need both aspects because the divine masculine provides the seed, provides the energy, and the divine feminine, like we can see even the sun in essence, is an expression of the divine masculine that is putting energy into the earth, the divine feminine that takes that energy and births everything. And then it also manages their deaths and their recomposition into the earth and back into another life form again. So the feminine is working with that cycle of life and death and creation, and then is depending on the masculine to work with the energy, to stimulate it, to feed it, to protect it. Masculine has an aspect of going out and initiating, and it's the feminine that grounds things and really balances them and brings them into a stable condition. We would have a lot of civilizations start and die with only the masculine working with it. But the feminine is what sustains and keeps some of these civilizations and the family unit together, continually growing and working with grounding that aspect.
This is what you do when you've just found that statement handbag on eBay and you want to build an entire wardrobe around it. You start selling to keep buying. Yep, on eBay. Over that all-black everything phase? List it and buy all the color. Feeling more vintage than ever? It's out with the new and in with the pre-loved. Next thing you know, you've refreshed your wardrobe basically without spending a dime. Yeah, eBay, the place to buy and sell new, pre-loved, vintage, and rare fashion.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. What comes to mind when you hear the word gratitude? Maybe it's a daily practice, or maybe it feels hard to be grateful right now. Don't forget to give yourself some thanks by investing in your well-being. BetterHelp is the largest online therapy provider in the world, connecting you to qualified professionals via phone, video, or message chat. Let the gratitude flow. Visit BetterHelp.com to learn more and save 10% on your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
For a long time, especially in my 20s, I realized later on that I was living in my masculine energy, and I had been trained to do that. It was all about pushing and going and creating, but just pushing, really. And what it took me quite a long time to realize was that without coming back into my feminine energy, I wasn't integrating the work that I was doing, and I wasn't actually receiving the guidance from the work that I had put in. Now I realize I have these ebbs and flows in my work cycle, and it's difficult for a lot of humans because we're not taught to balance those energies. And so a lot of the clients that I work with beat themselves up because they have this self-image that they can't sustainably be successful. They can't sustain their own success. And a lot of the work we end up doing together is realizing, like, those ebbs backward, those, like, when you're flowing and then you dial it back, that's not you failing. That's you coming back into balance to receive the work that you've done, to receive the transformation from the work that you've put in.
I like to think about how things work, where we kind of go out and we come back in, and we go out and we come back in. There's energy is not just one straight line, and we are energy. I want to go back to something that you said at the beginning about, I think as a woman, I also feel like I was trained, if I was going to be successful, I had to push my way into it. I had to use that masculine energy. And right now, energetically, I feel that we are in such an important time to move into a whole different frame called allowing, where we actually trust the universe. We actually trust ourselves and each other to allow this to just come. The universe is amazing. It doesn't need us to be in competition with it to try and direct it and to tell the universe how to be. And the truth is that we're all one anyhow. So that conversation gets a little silly. But allowing is a different feminine posture. It is that female energy that says, okay, you've shot the arrow out. Now it's time to allow it to find its place, to reach its mark, and to come into your life in whatever way seems appropriate. And so the feminine context of allowing is softer. It's more, it's listening on different levels. It's not just using our brain, our intellect, but it's using our feelings, it's using our intuition, it's using our creative modes. So all of those are often aligned with what we call the feminine energies. And it's so important. We're in such a wonderful time now where we can really exercise that part of ourselves. We can explore what it is to come together using the feminine energy along with the masculine. And I think that, whenever we shift from one mode to another, sometimes we tend to overbalance into one side, in order to create that balance. I think what we're going to be seeing is more and more of how it works together, how things really integrate. And yeah, I mean, I think about the analogy that we talked about before with breathing. You can't just keep breathing out. That would be pretty darn exhausting. You have to breathe in. You have to relax. You have to give credence to what it takes for something to come together in its own natural way. You plant a seed and it takes time for it to germinate. And that's part of that receptive energy to allow the flow, the cycle of all that is to take place and to be with it instead of wondering, is this right? Is this going to come up? Instead, just knowing that it's happening in its own time, in its own way.
And another aspect, Melissa, is that the highest aspects of our being, our beingness, is where we really create from. And that we can get so caught up into the tiny aspect that we look at that we're doing all the time. And we need to take those breaks from doing what we think we're supposed to be doing to give ourselves a chance to tune in to those higher aspects, those aspects that every artist knows, whether they're making a painting, doing a dance, or making a wonderful bowl of soup. They need to create that from a place of tuning in to their beingness. And that's when the highest aspect of them can come through and be expressed.
That's what I found is for so long, I was trying to pick the right thing, trying to find my purpose. And I was doing it in such a masculine way that I was just stressing myself out and creating an entire block around it. And it took me way too long, but now I help clients through a process of finding that alignment with their higher self. And it's just so wild how when it happens, it's like suddenly doors open, opportunities come your way. Things feel like they fall magically into place. You start to think about somebody and then they reach out to you. It's just really wild. And while we're talking about the concept of creativity, and we talked about the masculine and feminine being numbers 1 and 2, I know you mentioned that number 3 is a creative force. Can you elaborate on how this number influences patterns in the universe?
Okay, it would be easier with a lot of diagrams, but let's try to wordsmith it. And that is 3 creates a geometry between the 1, like I was talking about, a circle being unity, and as unity expands into 2, you have 2 circles overlapping. And that center element that looks like a football, an almond, it's something called a vesica Pisces or vesica piscis. And that shape actually, if you break it into one square on top of another, one long rectangle, you can find all the different square roots of creation in that one shape. So we're talking about the square root of 2, the square root of 3, the square root of 5, and they all happen within that shape. And those aspects are what are used to build everything else. All the different solids that we have, the platonic solids, and even the flat forms, the two-dimensional forms, like a square and a hexagon, they all can spring from that three aspect. And three is amazing because you look at other numbers like 6, it's 3 plus 3. So that gives us the 6, and 3 times 3 gives us the 9. And the 3, 6, 9 are crucial for showing us how the universe comes together, how time works. It always is in a base 60 system. And we can see when, like in the book, we start laying out different periods of time and see that that gives us different geometries and even different measures. It will give us all the measures of the diameter of the moon, the diameter of the earth, the diameter of the sun. And, and so all of this is coming back to three. That's why it has a full chapter in there of just talking about how it's at the beginning, the source of creating everything. And when Gail started talking about the tetrahedron as being the essential building block of creation, that comes from a three-dimensional triangle. So it's working with triangles, which are three-sided, and everything can be built from there.
I am interested that you mentioned the Vesica Pisces, because I remember learning how I was raised in a religion that I kind of expanded away from, but I know that the fish symbol of Jesus Christ is actually the horizontal form of the Vesica Pisces.
Mhm.
And I mean, Pisces is fish of people that are interested in astrology. Do you know anything about how those are related or why it came to
Absolutely.
be?
So when I said vesica piscis, that's Latin for fish bladder. So it's involved with the fish. And Jesus Christ started walking this planet at the beginning of the Piscean age. So that is involved with fish. And so it became the symbol that was incorporated into Christianity, where you often see that on the front of a church, there'll be a Vesca Piscis, where in the center, there's Jesus Christ. Or they'll have an aura that will be kind of that football shape behind him, where again, it's reflecting the beginning of the age of Pisces. Right now, we're kind of moving out of that age into the age of Aquarius, which comes after. So it was just the fact of the timing and the way it worked with so many of the symbols, working with fishing and fish and fishermen, that it became dominant in especially Christianity.
It's interesting too in architecture, the way that the Vesica Pisces was designated, sometimes called the divine womb, as the place that you would walk into. It was like after you walk into the church, there would be a place that prepared you then to go further into the sanctuary. So it was like that in breath, so that you would kind of recenter yourself, prepare yourself for where you were heading from there. So, it was a very rich place of preparing the next level of elevation.
It's so fascinating. So many people believe that this different religions, everything is so separate. But often, if you go deep enough, you'll find
Mhm.
how it all overlaps, because it's really the fabric of existence. It's the truth of who we are. I personally believe these are the types of things that Jesus was actually trying to teach before religion kind of took over with their own narrative. But I'm curious, when we're thinking about these structures, like people might be thinking, well, that's really cool, but how does it apply to my daily life? Like, what do I need to know? Do I need to be identifying numbers? Do I need to give a hooray whenever I see 333 on the clock? Like, what? How do people bring this into their grounded reality?
Well, I think the most important thing is that this is all about how can we connect to the higher realms of who we are? How can we connect to each other, to the universe, to our oneness? And we live in a modern time where we're so disrupted. There's so much going on all the time that makes it really rough to stay connected. Whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship that's rough, whether it's the electromagnetics that are in our environment, there's so much fear and so much that is about separation. And really, what's important is for us to find our pathway to connection. And sacred geometry, the way that I see it, is a way of helping us all feel those essential connections. When you go out into a beautiful place in nature and you are totally surrounded with sacred geometry there, I mean, the universe is just giggling with all that it's presenting you with, and you feel good, you feel peaceful. You can feel your creativity. You can breathe better. And so, that's the beauty of what sacred geometry offers to us in just that physical realm. So, what we've done over all these years, because we can't always all be in that beautiful place in nature. We're really blessed. We live out in the country and we have all this great energy around us. But the truth is that a lot of people don't have that. So we've developed tools that are created based on these sacred geometric principles that help us be connected. And that's really the important thing, not necessarily trying to mentalize it, or trying hard to figure out how am I going to get more connected. It's really like what we were talking about before about the feminine energy, the allowing ourselves to be in a place to work with certain situations that support us in those connections, and then allowing those connections to fuel our lives. And so, we found that, like we wear pendants. We have people that are wearing our pendants all over the world for the last 25 years that are filled with different antenna systems and geometries and all kinds of things that what they do is they help us maintain the essential connections of who we are because they resonate with who we are. So now we're resonating with that instead of resonating with the stress or the rigors of life that tend to take you off your mark. So that's one of the things that we have found really support us. We have like geometries behind me, and these geometries, when they're in an environment, actually help shift the vibration because everything's frequency, everything's energy and vibration. And so when we create things that can then resonate in a way that's more life positive, then we're able to be more fully human. And that's our challenge right now, is to really be more fully human.
It does seem like the more humans have their hand in things, it's like we are destroying nature. But there's a concept that we hear in spiritual circles around co-creating with the universe. When you think about that, what ideas can you share to actively engage in that process?
Go ahead.
We both are exciting to answer this one. To co-create, what starts happening is as you expand your awareness into the higher forms of consciousness, you start realizing that there isn't separation. So co-creation is kind of a word to get us comfortable with realizing that we are ultimately the creators of everything. It's not about separation, but it's a first step. And so the first step is understanding how powerful you really are and how much of your life you are responsible for. And if you take responsibility for all of it, then you're totally in that controlling seat. And so when something happens that seems really off or seems to be something that isn't supporting you, it's important to step back and look from another perspective how it may be supporting you, how it may be affecting your life in ways that you hadn't thought about positively. And so co-creation is a process of us growing up, growing into the fullness of who we are, and then taking more and more responsibility from that position.
I was thinking about what you talked about before, Gregory, with the number 1 and 2. One, you can look at it as the sun. It's like, I am everything. And yet, it's not until we move out beyond ourself and start creating partnership, creation happens then. And so it's really, it is an evolutionary step where we go outside of ourselves and say, guess what? I don't have all the answers. But when I start collaborating, co creating with others, then amazing and magical things start to happen. But um, we have to trust that and get beyond that feeling of I need to control this, and the outcome, instead of, oh, when we get together, that's when these miracles happen. It's not just 1 + 1 = 2. It equals 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All kinds of things start to spiral because we step out of ourselves. And that is a process.
And it's what we were talking about earlier when we were, discussing how to do that and to be in a place where we're not just doing, but allowing the being to come in. And that's, like Gail said, to do it with partnership, do it with others, do it with universe where we're being with others and being with universe. So it's a process of allowing a lot more, as we were talking about earlier.
There's one other number I want to cover. I know we don't have time to cover all of the numbers. 7 is one that seems so prevalent in spiritual, mystical, even religious traditions. What should we know about the number 7?
Ah, 7 is all about magic. 7 is weird one out that all the other numbers fall into patterns that are easily seen, and 7 is more difficult to see. But when you look into, like you were talking about, all the different religions or belief systems, 7 is where you have the 7 magicians, you have the 7 elements that bring in the magic, that bring in the uniqueness that we can't find easily. And so 7, we could show you, like when you take the numbers 1 through 6, you get a particular number, and then breaking it at 7, 8, 9, you get, and multiply them together, you get a particular number. And you do it the other way where it's 1 through 7 and 8, 9, 10, you get another number where they're equal. So rather than to fill up people's heads with numbers, it's like the break is at 7 even, and so often you find that when you're progressing in things, that 7 is the magical break point where transformation happens. And so it's it's that place of magic that is not easily drawn, because you can draw a hexagon and an octagon pretty easily, but a 7-sided heptagon, it is not as easy to draw with just a straight edge and a compass. So that's where the magic comes in with 7.
I'm really interested in how you guys mentioned wearing the pendants can affect your resonance, can align you. For people that are interested in your pendants, is there a place that they can get them? I know I want one.
And so for those that are watching this, this is what they look like. And you have what looks like 2 pendants, but there's a front side and a back side to those pendants. And we have about 30 antenna systems inside. And the place where they can find out more is on our website, I Connect to All, and that's ICONNECT, the number 2, and then ALL.com. And if your listeners put a /chapter after that, then they can receive a free chapter from our book, the one where we're talking about consciousness. And this pendant that we're talking about, it does literally change the energy coming into you and the energy coming out of you. Because I've been told by, like, this one woman, a grandmother, that she said, what I love about the pendant is that before getting it, my grandkids used to run away from me. And now that I'm wearing it, they're crawling all over me. So that's the difference between being attracted to the energy or not having that energy around you.
So beautiful. Well, if you were going to leave listeners with a piece of growth work, what would that be?
The biggest piece of growth work is, where are you in relationship to allowing the essence of your soul to be amplified into your life? Where are you? Because when it comes down to it, that's where the magic is. How can you conduct your life and see yourself in your environment and in your relationships in such a way that you're being more true to who you are? And that's your sacred self. So getting, having the time, taking those precious moments to just honor yourself, listen to your inner voice, hear those messages, and invite that aspect of yourself to really come home into this body and see where it goes, see what gets created and co-created, and just get comfortable with it. It's a process. It doesn't happen all at once, even though sometimes little sparks can ignite all kinds of wonderful things.
And I would say another important thing is that we talk about unity and love being behind everything, being under everything. And yet, as things bubble up in our life, it is often very difficult to see any consciousness or love in the thing that's happening in front of us at the moment. So I know that is always a good thing for me to take some of the things that happen during the day and just breathe into it and find where maybe it didn't appear at first to be supporting me, but go a little deeper and find out what I've learned from it how it's helped me grow, and how I can turn it into a positive understanding for me when it was initially something that didn't appear to be that.
All the links for this episode will be at mindlove.com/348. Your challenge for this week is to really get in touch with your essence. We spend our lives learning how to fit in, behave, be like everyone else, follow this path to success. And along the way, we forget who we truly are. We forget that the path to success is actually known to make most people pretty miserable. Even when you're making all the money in the world, if you're not doing something that you love every day, finding meaning in everyday moments, you're going to be miserable. You're going to feel trapped. And as your bills stack up, because that's what happens when you have more income, you're going to feel even more tied to these specific activities that you don't like showing up for every day. That is not how we're supposed to live our lives. We're supposed to be leaning into our joy, following that inner voice, figuring out what makes us uniquely us, because that is where our innate gifts lie. And those innate gifts are given to us because that is what our soul came here for. That is the specific, meaningful change that we have come here to create. That's actually exactly what I help you find in Soul Strength Activation, and I'm gearing up for cohort number 2. It's been so exciting leading my first group through and seeing the incredible transformations. If you want more information on this, reach out to me at mindlovemelissa or send me an email at melissa@mindlove.com. The other thing I want to talk to you about is the amount of resistance that we create in our life is completely unnecessary. And just like we were talking about in this episode, where when you attune to a different vibration, life starts to flow a little bit better. The same happens when we start to break through some of our internal blocks, when we start to approach our lives differently. And that is exactly what we're going to be focusing on at the upcoming Mind Love Retreat in September. I'm so excited about this. I'm pulling out all the stops for this. I just visited the mansion that it's going to be held at, and oh my gosh, this place is even better than the photos, and I was sold on the photos. It is epic. We don't even have to leave the grounds, and it'll be the best time ever. But we do have plans to leave the grounds sometimes. But this spot is just so incredible. I cannot wait to show it to you guys. Also, luxury organic chef, the best cacao facilitator in all of Southern California. We're going to have immersive nature coaching. The gift bags that I'm planning for you guys. It's just going to be wellness on wellness on wellness. I want to make sure that you're set up for the best sleep ever, for the best habits ever, and I don't want to give too much away. So check out more details at mindlove.com/retreat. Reach out to me with any questions that you might have, but this is going to be the most incredible thing that I have ever put on in my entire life. So get excited about that. And all of my sponsors are at mindlove.com/sponsors. And that's all for today. So thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.